not even news really, more just
Terrible. Playoff hockey, I could watch, I'll watch any team, when it's playoff hockey.
Yeah.
Soccer, friggin'. But that's over, but anyway, yeah. But Emma, so we've been there a couple weeks, I told you this the other night, Emma learned what a DVD was.
Emma, I saw Emma at the
Uh-oh.
Crumpet with someone when
My
Connor was
mother-in-law,
playing.
yep.
Yeah,
She lasted about 15 minutes.
I
there.
noticed, yeah. I was surprised she lasted that long.
Emma is, what's the word? Action oriented.
Not in for sitting still.
I can relate.
So I tell people, because when she was born, she was 2 pounds 11 ounces.
Yeah.
And first morning I went down to the NICU. I said, "How'd the little girl do?" Because she was fine. She had a great African. It was Sarah that was. They said, "Look, how'd the little girl do?" They said, "Your little girl is 3 pounds of tyrant."
Yeah.
I said, "Really?"
I just learned.
I said, "Once you learn to change her diaper and take her temperature." She was 3 pounds, and I'll tell you what, she gave me a run for my money. And so then I was rocking her that day, and I remember saying to her, if you're fine after all this, Daddy will never get mad at you. And in that moment, that child took on her first challenge.
Is this another?
Challenge accepted, sir.
Does she know this story yet?
What's that?
Does she know this story?
Yeah, I mentioned it to her a couple
Yeah,
times.
you're screwed, man.
Yep, and she
Forever.
she knows, and she you know how she is. She's her verbal stuff is, but she understands everything you say to her. She just doesn't let on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do- I can't remember.
Mhm. Okay. There he is.
Evening.
How goes it?
I'm here.
It's half the battle most days.
Don't ask for any more than that.
Oh.
Thank you, sir.
They're pretty. That's good, because then I won't start sneezing. I
Right behind you.
did it again.
Nobody's going in and out this door, right?
Jacob just went out it, but he won't be
Can't get
coming in
back
it.
in.
Yep.
I'm gonna sit right here and I'm gonna punch whoever hurts the flowers.
Oh,
Just saying.
It's a bit violent, but
What's that?
it's a bit violent.
Senioritis.
like if you have code, the mayor could say, why don't you go over and look at those flowers to somebody who's talking to
Well,
them?
this morning, something happened and I realized why retirement is a good idea because it happened and almost out of my mouth came something that I never would have done 10 years ago, which is don't use that attitude with me, which I would never have said to anybody, but I very nearly did.
Oh, I pretty much do it every day.
I haven't done it in 45
I
years.
had a
so
moment
it's
this
like-
morning too at work.
I don't know how
on
to
camera.
say things, but I know I give people a look of.
Oh, I can do the
No.
look. Don't think about just spitting it out.
This is all.
Hello, sir.
Oh, this is infrastructure.
You got that on your desk?
How's it going,
I
Mike?
guess I need nothing.
That's a good thing.
How are you?
Good.
How's the little boy?
Triangle
Very
lot
good,
reference
very
here,
good.
is that the middle strip that's
Very
green
good.
grass?
Yeah, from
The first one's
Bagley
always
to,
They really got
It's not actually a triangle.
Oh, real? Oh,
Okay,
I-
that's why the-
yeah, I don't know who's calling it a triangle, because that does not look like a
Yeah,
triangle.
Yeah, and that's what
Yeah,
I'm like, I'm like,
rectangle.
is there another piece?
That's how they get you.
So that's what, okay, that was helpful.
I do believe it's unbuildable, because the guy that gave it to him built on it.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what he's doing.
No, I was just confused, cause I was like, that is not triangle, I don't. I know what we own is a triangle, but somebody else was the rest, I don't.
I'll ask, when we get to agenda items to add that resolve,
For
just a request to amend the agenda, yeah. Aloha.
Good evening.
How you doing, man? Thank you. Good to see you.
Technical question for Jacob, I'm listening, Brian.
Yeah,
I would acknowledge.
That's probably.
Just wanted to make sure that
I
didn't.
think discussion items
sure.
items will be centered around that.
Yeah.
Hi.
Yeah, I'm gonna. Saturday. It's supposed to rain again Saturday.
I'm about to shift my work week. I'm giving up on the weekend system.
Our fuel sales is so far down this year.
Cause nobody's out on the weekend.
They can't get their boats in the water.
Yeah.
You know, they need to work on them on weekends and it's, it does nothing but rain.
It's,
Not
It's a
just
thing.
rain,
it's not fun.
down.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You okay if I plug in over here so I don't have to reach down underneath? I shouldn't even need to plug in, but I don't have to do it later.
Oh, I am not updating my device. Thank you, but no thank
I
you.
know.
Coward. I don't know why I have to talk garbage all the time. Just pay no attention.
I didn't even hear what you said.
I said coward.
I am a coward when it comes to updating my devices.
Then I listen to my son do it and I'm like, why does he behave that? And then I'm like, oh yeah. he's a-
He's just 3 days older than me.
No, you're 10 days older than me.
I am?
Yes. I was born April the 18th. If memory serves
I'm
me.
this, okay.
Yeah.
least I share a birthday with Dan's baby.
Nah, I probably look years older, but no, you got me beat.
I feel it.
Feel each day.
You're saying in 10 days I'm in trouble?
It's all downhill.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. I never cared about retirement until I turned 50. You know, like, I'm ready. Just kidding. I've got at least another 20 years.
That's what I'm figuring.
Yeah.
My next life, I'm gonna keep it.
Hey, good evening, everyone. I call to order the Infrastructure and Properties Committee meeting, Thursday, June 12th, 2025. In council chambers, this meeting can also be viewed on local cable channel 1303 or online at bucksportmaine.gov under watch meetings. Call to order. Roll call. Deputy Mayor Eastman.
Here.
Councilor Rankin.
Here.
Councilor Hare. The first discussion item on the agenda is the request from the Methodist Church to use the adjacent, it's described as triangular, I think it's rectangle, I think it's the middle rectangle piece. I was trying to understand
I call
which
it
one
a
it
I
was.
call it a triangle
You do?
because it's bounded on this side by Bagley Avenue, and then
Okay.
it comes up
Got it.
like this.
Just as long as we're on the same property.
We are right
Yeah,
along where there's some parking spaces right along the side of it, across from the Methodist Church. Pastor Remick had come to see me a while ago about that parcel. It was formerly owned by Pepin when they bought the Timberlands building that went with it. And they did apartments on that in the Timberlands building. And they had planned to do development on that lot, triangular, rectangular, that lot bounded by Bagley Avenue. And
Excuse me.
it's an unbuildable lot because it has a significant amount of underground utilities that are there. And even with that caveat, the valuation on it is over $120,000, which for the church makes it a really high expense. And their eventual potential use for that is if Whole Oceans or a subsequent owner were to do a development and require to use more of what was the former parking area, it would create difficulties for the church, and they would need to look at developing parking on that lot. But that isn't the case right now. And so the idea was that there's really no public green space on that end of Main Street, and that if the church and the town had a memorandum of agreement on the use of that as a public green space, whether for picnics or events or whatever, that it would allow the council to abate the majority of the taxes on the property, since it would have a public purpose, and then infrastructure or the rec committee or both could meet to sort of talk about what that would look like. And I'm recommending that the council consider this. As I said, it's if there was a way to build something on it, it would have happened, and there isn't. So it could be an asset that the community could also use. As I said, that end of town doesn't have green space, public green space. It just has the other.
There's a lot of dog walkers at the end of that town that might benefit from somewhere to sit down and have a bite to eat or something.
And so that and it's on the agenda tonight because tax liens go out soon, and we need to settle the idea of whether or not you would be willing to abate some of the taxes on this lot in exchange for the public use.
I think it's a good idea. But if they're gonna get a 75% tax abatement, there needs to be a discussion on what, are they gonna have rules, regulations, who's allowed to do what?
Or is it talking an MOU?
No, I'm talking about an MOU, but the idea, or what Pastor Remick and I discussed, was that it would be public use green space under that MOU, under the operation of the town, until or unless the church needed it for parking at some point in the future, and then that would be
Alright, so it'd be treated just like any
other
town
public,
park.
that's correct.
Yeah.
I'm fine with it.
So a motion
Uh,
to move
motion.
it to council.
Motion to move the use of this lot to council.
Second,
In favor? Motion passes. And the second item on the agenda is the discussion about the senior center lease agreement.
Yes, for those of you who have been around for a few years, back in 2021, we received correspondence from the property management at Stanford Management indicating that in looking over the lease that the town had originally signed with them in 1992 and had re-signed in 2012, that the town had not provided funding for propane and electricity at the site for all those years. And we got a really big bill. It was like $80,000. It was a big bill. And we responded that we had never been notified that it wasn't, it had been operating that way ever since the beginning, but our attorney said that the majority that could be considered owed by the town couldn't go back more than 6 years because that was the statute of limitations on some sort of contract. So that would have taken us back to 2015. We discovered that in this whole process, the former property manager, that the thing that divided the senior center kitchen from other things hadn't been done. They were gonna do something to change the electrical connections. And then it sort of went quiet for a long period of time. And at the end of last year, beginning of this year, the actual owner herself has been in contact with the town and is seeking to resolve this issue. And I've indicated in the letter what their proposal is, and what I don't want the town to do is have one more litigation, particularly in light of the fact that the senior center has been, the town has supported this since 1992. I mean, this has been a commitment, and truthfully, the lease as it exists right now is just a train wreck in terms of it's an unreasonable, there's no allowance for any raise in rent for 5 years at a time. That's not necessarily rational when the current rent is just over $1,000, which has no bearing on market value for rents of any kind, and certainly not one that has a commercial kitchen associated. So in order to settle this, I'm recommending that the settlement of the 10 years of claims for who paid what be paid at $10,000, and that the rent be $1,500 a month with a 3% escalator and a 10-year lease. And I believe that this would end this ongoing controversy, and because truthfully, there isn't another location for the senior center here. That the facility is used practically 7 days a week for some activity related to seniors. There would, I know Bill Foster has looked at Brown Hall, and he's looked at the Methodist Church, and all of those entities have competing uses that would significantly alter the way this has to work. So I'm looking for the committee to make a recommendation to council that we do this to settle this without, we would spend more on attorney's fees if we even start down that road than this.
Is it your sense that he'll accept your
Yes.
counter proposal? I was gonna say, cause that's like,
Yes.
she,
$1,500 a month, 3% per year
Yes,
increase.
yes.
at his recommendation, it's like just over 19,000 to start the beginning of it. Then
What's that?
a year, right? It's 1,600.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just a question, can you refresh my memory what the rent, do you know what the rent is now? $950?
It's cheap.
Yeah.
This is a
Gated by
10-year
a
lease
rule.
also?
No, it's a 20-year lease.
I
But it
know it.
started in 2012.
No, maybe I'm not asking that right. Are there?
I'm proposing a 10-year lease,
Gotcha.
starting now.
Yep. Makes sense, thank you.
And we pay electric and propane from here
We're
on.
all, we are doing that now. That has been changed, but what's at issue is the back stuff. Depending on how you calculate that, whether it's by square foot or, that all becomes a discussion.
Yeah, I'm fine with it. Motion to move to council as laid out in the memo.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Thank you, I really appreciate that, the senior center and its programming and all the work that Bill does is huge in terms of what the availability is.
And you don't want to limit them to somebody else's schedule for programming, which would be
They
difficult
would
in other
be-
locations.
You would have to pay somebody something to use it.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, moving right along.
Quick. Sorry, Tracy,
Go ahead.
quick. The little dining room, is that part of that included? Or is it just the big main senior center and the kitchen?
when you walk into the senior center, you go left to the kitchen, and across from that is an office. That office and kitchen, and then everything to the right.
Okay.
The common area for residents is to the left of the kitchen and the office. And that is not part of it.
That's part of the.
That's a part of Stanford, and that at one point was being heated with propane. That was part of the question about how much to owe, but that's been disconnected, so now it's just the senior centers.
Okay.
Next up, the request from American Cruise Lines for a priority docking agreement with the town.
We Good evening, council, committee, I should say. Over the past couple of months, staff have been in communication with representatives from American Cruise Lines, and they have requested a priority docking agreement with the town to secure access for their ships at the town dock during the cruise season. And so, as you know, the big picture description of the agreement would be it would look in such a way that American Cruise Lines would pay the town a fixed fee on an annual basis in order to secure those priority docking rights, and they would also pay the town a docking fee based on the length of each vessel, calculated over a 24-hour period. We're still in negotiations with them as to what the specifics would look like, but right now, a ballpark of what that revenue would it be approximately $70,000 to $80,000 per year. Like I said, we're still working on the specifics of that, but that's approximately what it would look like. And so, in exchange for that fee, again, the town would grant them priority docking reservations, which would mean that they would have to submit to us a schedule of when they intend to be in town by January 31st of each calendar year. And we would honor those reservations prior to making any sort of reservations with any other operators. So that's really kind of the big picture of what the agreement would look like. And so what we're really looking for from the committee tonight is a recommendation to move the finalized agreement, which we're confident we can come to terms to prior to your next meeting, move that to a resolve at your next meeting. So Harbor Master Ormsby is in attendance tonight. I'm sure he'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have as far as specifics are concerned, but that's the request for this evening.
But that yearly fee doesn't cover trash or anything like that.
No, that's all extra.
It would be extra. We would continue to bill them.
And what about when they come in for weather?
That's up to me if I can let them in, depending on who's there, who's got
They
reservations.
wouldn't displace somebody that's already there.
Right, they would have to give me the dates that they wanna be there by January first, and then we decide by the 31st if they're approved or not. And once everything is approved, those dates are theirs. But anything other than that, if a storm or something, I do everything I can to accommodate them.
Sure.
Including moving people that are on the dock over to the marina if I can. So, they know that, and we've had a good working relationship over the years. There's a few things in here that, this is not, we're not approving this final thing anyway, but there's a few things in here that need to be addressed. Now, one of them was I don't know if you guys got the agreement?
No, that's not the
you don't.
purpose of tonight's
Okay.
meeting.
Okay, fine.
Yep.
We'll address these though, right?
Yep.
Okay.
I would note that the numbers mentioned here have cost escalators in them for CPI. So it isn't a static for 20 years number. It moves with CPI. So that is something that is included for both the fee and the any length charge, the length charge.
So we're looking for a motion to proceed with the item for consideration for resolve at the next council meeting. Do you have a
So
motion?
moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Yes. Motion. Okay, the final item on the agenda for the Infrastructure and Properties Committee meeting is adjournment. Motion to adjourn?
Motion adjourned.
Second.
Discussions? Adjourn.